On this episode of the S.B.R podcast, I'm really proud to welcome my uncle Bill McDonough to the show. From coaching to camps to tournaments, Bill has over 50 years of experience in the business of basketball. Uncle Bill, welcome to the show.
I'm very happy to be here, especially with you, Brian.
No, thank you. It's great for you to join me. I wish I could be there in person, but COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know.
So, but it's still great to have you. And let's just kickstart it off. If you can tell me a little bit about your experience when you first got it started in the business of basketball.
Well, my first basketball job was at Archbishop Carroll High School in Radnor. For the first year they opened, we had freshmen and sophomores. We were in the Catholic League, which is obviously the best league in the area, and we only had freshmen and sophomores. They were the full 4 years.
Yeah.
That year, there were 27 kids got Division I scholarships, the schools that we played against. So we were in some rough water. We did very well the first year when we played their JV teams. I think we only lost once or twice. But when we went to varsity, it was a struggle. We got a couple wins in the league and lots of wins outside the league. But after 2 years at Archbishop Carroll, I decided to put my toe in the water and go to college. So I went to Drexel University, where I was an assistant coach. This is all men's basketball.
Yeah.
Back then, Drexel practiced at the Armory, 34th and Market in Philadelphia. Very unusual setup.
Really? There used to be, actually, there was basketball hoops in there? Like,
Yeah, it was a very, very big building. And
huge place, yeah.
You'd see at the one end, you'd see the Jeeps being gassed up and set up and soldiers walking all around. Down our end, we're trying to play basketball. A little cold at night, but
yeah.
But I spent 2 years at Drexel. Our freshman team was great. One of the few losses we had was to my good friend Paul Westhead. They were St. Joe's. I was Drexel. They had 5 scholarships starting. I think 3 of them went to the pros. And I kid Paul to this day, we lost 84-83 at the buzzer. And we just were playing with the second line kids from the Catholic League. So it was a lot of fun. I think we were 17-2. And after 2 years of that, the head coach was let go. They kept me on to continue.
This is at Drexel, the head coach.
At Drexel, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And he was let go, so I was running the show.
Yeah.
The reason why I was running the show is because we were recruiting 2 players, both 7 feet. Very, very good players, and they wanted engineering. So we had been working all year. They finally decided both to go together to George Washington and not to Drexel. The next day, I got my letter telling me, "You're no longer wanted." We didn't get the 2 players.
Did anything come of those 2 players, out of curiosity?
They weren't. Yeah, one was a pro.
Okay.
Harper was a pro. Haviland Harper and Clyde Burwell were the 2 names. And they were not as good as 7-footers right now, but for back in that time period, which about how long ago? 72, 73.
Yeah.
But it was fun doing that. And then I said, well, I didn't decide anything. I didn't have a job at that point. So I decided to start another business. I started a basketball camp, and there were no other camps anywhere
at that time.
That's how old it was. And my fellow who got started with me was a guy named Billy McDonough, who was a great player at Villanova, the Sixers, the Nets with Julius Erving, and we're friends to this day. After 1 year, since he was making considerably more money, he didn't feel he wanted to be in camps anymore.
So you were one of the first to do this.
Well, the only other day camp that I know of was a gentleman by the name of Don Casey, who coached at Temple after Litwack.
And what was the name of your camps at this point?
Very unusual. Bill McDonough basketball.
Bill McDonough basketball camps. Yep. Okay.
You should have some of those shirts at home, Brian.
I've seen one of those shirts. I won't mention who he is, but an old classmate of mine's dad, who's now wildly successful. I went over to their house. They have a golf course in their backyard. He brought me up and said, you're Brian McDonough? Yeah, I have your uncle's shirt. And he went up, I guess, up into his room and brought it down.
He was a camper then.
Yeah, yeah. And I've heard other people, they associate me with you and they associate you with the camps.
Well, at that time, like I said, there wasn't any other camps.
Yeah.
So the thing to do was to go to a day camp then, and we were the first one. And the first year we had it at Carroll. The next year we had it at Carroll and Bonner. And soon I was running 10 of them simultaneously. Now, you know this because you've been to camps, so that means you need 10 speakers at 10 places.
Yeah.
And back then we had people like Rick Pitino,
Really?
Lee Brown, Patino, Massimino, you name it, they all worked there.
How did you go about getting these guys? Like, what?
Well, kind of what you do, right? I picked up the phone and called them.
Yeah.
Now, I had a little bit of an entree because I had been a high school and college coach. They knew my name. And then once we were going a couple of years, the coaches were all very interested to do it until they started making lots of money. And then Rick Pitino did 2 years of 2 camps a day for 2 weeks. And he was the best. Let's just talk about basketball now. He was the best clinician ever. Him and Jimmy Lynam and George Raveling were the best. Wow. But anyway, after the second year, he says, Bill, I can't do this anymore. I'm really giving up a lot of money to come down here and do this in Philadelphia. He was a coach up in Boston. Now, is
he at UMass at the time? Wasn't he at
BU,
Boston U? Okay.
You know, he still has a few. He's coaching Iona now after leaving Kentucky. So while doing the camps, which I never stopped from that point on, I created a scouting business. And the scouting business was first team-wise. So if Brigham Young was playing LaSalle at the Palestra, we scouted 2 ways. Brigham Young would buy a report on LaSalle.
Okay.
And then I got a report on Brigham Young to see if they were playing somebody in Milwaukee.
Sure.
And we just did that. And it got pretty big, pretty involved because, you know, what happened was that once you have a LaSalle or Villanova report, you kind of add to it because you've already seen it. But the new teams are different. We did that for a while along with the camps. And then I got a call from the NBA, a fellow named Marty Blake, who I think has since passed away. He was the first talent scout for the league. He didn't work for a team. He worked for the league. And he would tell the league where he was going. And then he had people like me all around the country to go to the games.
Sure.
And that was fun. It was much easier because you'd have to write a real big report up. Basically, they want to know if he can make it or not make it. And we did that for about 6-7 years.
What mostly the Big Five, or was it just any, what area?
Well, I would mostly watch games in the Philadelphia area, South Jersey. Never a lot of travel, a little bit sometimes, because back then the Palestra would have 3 doubleheaders a week.
It's true. Yeah.
And you saw many, many teams, and really good teams would come in. So that's what really got me started. Then, you know, we were doing the team scouting. I was doing individual scouting at Marty Blake and doing camps. And it was going pretty good. And then the NBA decided that they didn't want to pay Marty Blake anymore. So each team hired their own scouts. I did not get picked up. After my scouting business, I decided to start an event called, this is Blue Chip Shootout. Okay. And my first bad story is I didn't trademark the name Shootout, and it was never used before. And now everything's a shootout.
Everything's
a shootout. And the reason I started the shootouts was your aunt, Trish, was playing in high school, a very good player. Mm-hmm. And nobody could see them play because there wasn't really many camps and tournaments in April, May, June. So I decided to announce that I would have this thing at Hereford College or Villanova.
Yeah.
Players, male then, no girls, it was all male. Males would come, and we'd 10 them on a team, and then coaches came to watch them. and we were flocked with coaches. It became very big. We got to the point where we were running 20 of these across the country over 3 weekends, and everybody I knew was going and running them for me, and Uncle Sean and Uncle Bill. There's a lot of people working on it, but it became the largest in the country. Again,
this is men's at that point. And what
men's only. Not a thing with women yet. Not a thing with women.
When would this be? Is this the 80s, late? Like
I would say it would be 78 to maybe 87.
87. Okay.
With this shootouts. Now the camp started back in 1968.
Sure.
Yeah. So it became very successful. I kind of dropped out of the boys' side because, just like what's going on now, if a very talented player wants to come to my event, then I was starting to hear, well, can you get a room for my uncle? And my father needs a rental car.
Yeah.
And there wasn't that kind of income. So I eased my way out of that, went to women, did the same thing, and we were more successful, and they were much easier to work with. So that really got me into the women's business. I then wasn't in men at all.
If you don't mind me asking, when it comes to that part, so you transition into the women's side of basketball. Obviously, women have been playing basketball for decades, but how robust was it back then as far as tournaments and recruiting? And were you kind of a trailblazer on that end at that point?
Well, the recruiting was much less than it is now.
Sure.
And so there weren't what I call tournaments, which I'll tell you about in a little while, going on. So they didn't have many opportunities to be seen, but it started to really get schools like Villanova and St. Joe's, they'd all have 4 and 5 scholarships every year. So, but we, same thing, we got to having around 20 shootouts around the country.
Yeah.
And then the NCAA, as they often do in the world of sports, they changed when coaches could see people coming.
Sure.
It was 3 weekends, which it left a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or 9 days over, so we could do them all over. They made it a Saturday and Sunday once. So we could no longer have people in Oregon and one in Boston because coaches couldn't go to all of them. So we had to get into something new. And that's when I started blue chip basketball tournaments. First one was USA Invitational, because then a team would have 10, 11 players. There'd be anywhere from 100 to 300 teams would come. And again, all the coaches could see these guys, just sit in a chair and watch them. And we didn't have to, we could do it over that weekend, but they could see many more than they would even see. So the idea was actually helpful. Did that through the 90s. And then my camps were still going on. I had one in the mountains, Canadensis, Pennsylvania, up in the Poconos. And that became very well known as the place to be. Back then, seniors would come to the camp, and coaches, believe it or not, would work at the camp as counselors.
Interesting.
And at night they would play.
Interesting.
And it was a great thing. That's back when kids got to camp. There was 10 kids in a cabin with 1 bathroom, 1 shower. Not nowadays where you're in an air-conditioned room. But actually, it was fun. After the first day, they got used to it. I don't know if you were ever up there or not, but anyway.
I've never been up there. No.
So I was very involved with that. Then in 1978, I took another job while I was doing the camps. I became the co-director of the Philadelphia Big Five. Now, that's where, as you know, the 5 city schools play each other in a round robin. And very, very famous across the country. My job was to get them on TV and radio and all the marketing type things.
Sure.
Another fellow did the operational stuff. And I did that to 85, along with the camps and the tournaments. And in 1985, I was very fortunate to be hired at Villanova as an associate AD 3 months before they won a national championship.
Good timing. Yeah.
So it was perfect timing. In fact, I became a marketing genius because when they won, people just came flocking to me. Things were very different then.
Yeah.
Much different. I give you an idea. 1985, Villanova obviously went to the tournament. They won the tournament. And when you get to the Final Four, tickets are really a big deal. Now, then, we didn't have a development plan where we were using them to raise money. So
Interesting.
the head AD called me up, went in his room, tickets were all over the floor, and he goes, "How many need?" I said, "What do you mean? We want a couple hundred?" I said, "A couple hundred." So I got on the phone and called all my relatives and all my friends.
Yeah.
They all got tickets and went to the Final Four in Kentucky. That could never happen now. Never. You'd be lucky to get one ticket. So that was fun.
So you're responsible for my dad wearing the
absolutely
the obnoxious,
that crazy
obnoxious hat.
And
I'm gonna put a picture of it in this video too. It's gonna come up on the screen, so we'll see.
All right. But anyway, that was a great experience. I worked there till 1992, and it was great because my wife went back to college. She got her degree, and Billy went there, got his degree, and Sean, Trish won a basketball scholarship, and she played there, so she didn't need it. And then, as I'm talking about that, Meredith got a scholarship to Mount St. Mary's. So I kid the two boys, that the girls all got scholarship. What did you do? But it was a little easier back then. There's a lot of 5'10" guards in the world now and then.
Yeah.
So I went to Villanova, left in 92, and that's when I got really involved with. I started a thing called Phillies baseball camps.
Familiar with those?
I just copied the idea of what I did with basketball and did it with baseball. There'd be 4 days they would play at a local playground or high school, and the fifth day they would go to the vet then and play. And the players would come out in the field. So I was doing that all the time with the other stuff. So I was now just in camp business and tournament business. And since I told you before that around 87, tournaments started for girls. Well, now they're going crazy. Everybody's running them. In 2000, let's say, in 18, there may be 40 tournaments every weekend between Baltimore and Boston.
And when you were running them, when you originally started them, how many tournaments would you say there were? I
don't think there was 4 in the United States.
Wow. And now I remember going to the last, obviously I volunteered a little bit at a couple of your events, and you had teams from Canada, teams from Spain. I mean, it seems like it's getting even more global at this point, right?
Oh, no, it is.
I
guess we had maybe at the most 7 to 10 teams from, Europe. Some other tournaments go after that and get a lot more. I think when you worked there, I think we probably maybe had 320 teams.
Yeah.
We had a 30-court facility. So you have to be able to figure out referees for 30 courts every hour from 8 till 10 at night. And then the game started at 10 and don't go over to 11. Referees, there's just many, many details, but it became second nature to us because we did it all the time.
You had a system.
And the name of the tournaments were Blue Chip, and did not also trademark that name. In between all this stuff, I also became a rep for Nike, and my job was to get high schools to wear their shoes.
Interesting.
Now everybody does team shoes, and team wears blue. Well, then it never happened. So I met Mr. Knight, Phil Knight of Nike, and I had an idea for him. I said, why don't we get all the schools to wear the same color of a shoe? We'll give the coach a bag. They'll give the price, and all the dealerships around the country will sell them. He said, do it. Well, I don't know how many thousand teams we got. So I became a star, so to speak. And I then got put on a list where 10 or 20 or 30 college coaches would be taken to Bermuda or to some fancy resort where they were wined and dined for 5 days. And I'd be there too. And everybody'd say, who is he? But it was great. It was a wonderful time. It was real. I have some great stories. It would take too long.
Do you share? Can you share one? Do you have a quick one off the top?
Yeah, they always have skits at big conventions. Try to get people involved, interested. So this one dinner we went to, everybody's sitting all around, maybe 150 people. And it's like 8 at a table, typical. But on the table are water pistols.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay, what is this for? Well, right before dessert, I saw somebody go put water in a water pistol. I said, here's trouble. He comes out and he shoots somebody. And that person shoots him back. The next thing you know, we got 150 people, including Michael Jordan, Moses Malone, and they're all jumping over tables, chasing people. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It was just phenomenal. And then another story, and then we'll stop the Nike stuff. Another one of these events, they had the people that they put you in a trance. A
hypnotist.
Hypnotist.
Yeah.
So we're watching hypnotists do all those things. Oh, it was tremendous. It was tremendous. My wife is sitting next to me, Paul Westhead's wife next to her, and they are just itching to go up. They're just dying to go up.
Sure.
Have any more volunteers? They put their hands up, they go up. Now, this is a mistake. This is going to be a mistake because they were asking them to do some crazy things, which we won't go into now, that you wouldn't do unless you were hypnotized. Well, anyway,
PG.
Michael Jordan's father was sitting next to my wife.
Okay.
Just by accident. Well, the third thing they were going to do was they said, all right, guys, you're really tired. Just close your eyes and take a nap and just put your head on the shoulder next to you. And actually, his father's asleep. He's all over your aunt like this. And then they wake her up, and then they want the women to do something. And Mrs. Westhead could not stay serious. They had to kick her off. But Aunt Patty's there, rigid, and they put her out.
Yeah.
And then she was doing some of the things that they asked them to do, and it was all right. But the Nike trips were great. They lasted about 5 or 6 years, and there's many more.
So you were kind of the special guest in some respects at those.
Well, if you know the name Sonny Vaccaro.
Okay.
The biggest name. He's the one originally that got colleges to wear the shoes, and the coaches got paid.
Sure.
Well, Sonny was my liaison at Nike, and I became his guy, and he got me on the list and brought me there. Everybody else was a college coach and me. So when I was, I guess the third year I went to one of these trips, I asked Sonny Vaccaro if I could meet Mr. Knight again, Phil Knight, the owner of Nike.
Yeah.
And I go to lunch, Sonny and his wife, Mr. Knight and his wife, me and my wife. So Knight looks at me and goes, all right, let's go. What is it? What's this big idea you have? What do you want to do? I said, well, I'd like to just sell Nike products in a store. Nothing but Nike. No football equipment, just Nike shirts and sneakers, but Nike only.
Yeah.
He looks at me and goes, that's the worst idea I have ever heard. I went, oh, we left. I thought, pretty good. Year and a half later, Nike Town. That's true. So another one of these.
So do you consider yourself like the way all these stories and an entrepreneur, a marketer, it seems like you had a knack for ideas and for marketing. And I mean, is that what you say is ultimately like your specialty? And a coach too. I mean, kind of those, it goes hand in hand.
We'll cover that later. Coaching's going all along.
Yeah.
I guess, Mark, and I think you're really sales oriented. And the more that you want to get your product or my event to be known, you have to learn ways to market it.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that, and they became pretty important. And another great time. Now, just recently, I'm not in the tournament business because we ended it after 54 years. I finally retired. But the NCAA, they weren't allowing any tournaments this summer because of the virus.
Sure.
So if I had a business this year, it would have been very bad because nobody could go. So it'll be interesting to see what happens now in the future at these events because they're very, very needed. It's done in every sport, as you know. It's done in baseball. It's done in lacrosse. It's done in soccer.
Mm-hmm.
So that coaches want to see these kids perform against the best players. Eventually got into tournaments where I'd coach. And then I started my own basketball club, a club that would go to tournaments called the Lady Running Rebels. And if I can toot my horn a little bit, in 22 years, we've had 180 players get Division I scholarships.
Wow.
So obviously the Rebels became very well known also.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's very competitive. It's kind of like recruiting for college, you know. If there was a girl that was a great player at O'Hara, maybe there'd be 4 different teams want her to play.
Now, obviously, it was almost like a pipeline to college, and your team was really good, nationally ranked. I've seen the trophies at your house. At that point, did you recruit them, or did you pretty much just have tryouts?
In the beginning, we would just have a tryout.
Yeah.
But then we became pretty good, and then the phone used to come to us. They wanted to.
That's what I would think. Yeah.
And so for about 20 years, there was another club in town that was either us, and there were so few tournaments for a while that the biggest thing was to go to the national AAU tournament. Mm-hmm. And then you had to be the champion of your state. And then you went to the national tournament.
Yeah.
And those trophies you saw, we came in second twice and third, but never won it. But when you would play Nebraska, it was the best 10 girls from the state of Nebraska. That's how they did it. And Oregon might have the 10 best. In Philly, or Pennsylvania, you didn't get the 10 best because they were divided into more teams.
Sure.
So when you beat Nebraska or you beat Ohio or you beat Florida, it was really a big deal. And I would say almost every starter on every team in a tournament would be a Division I player, at least, or even more. So that's still going on. I still have a team. We didn't play much this year because of the virus, but we're getting ready. This year I'll coach girls that are currently in 9th grade. I've done it every grade, but I'm probably getting ready to end it all. So I may do them for their 3 years in high school and stop. But that next number that's in my birthday is kind of a big one. I don't know whether we're going to keep on working that or not.
Well, if you enjoy it.
Oh, I enjoy it.
What you do. Yeah.
I enjoy it.
So how like for any of our listeners, you know, because I kind of sometimes forget we're even in a podcast. It's like we're having a conversation. What's some advice you have? Like, how are you able to ask Paul Westhead the same question, sustain such a long career, and reinvent yourself, and continuously just developing ideas? And for over 50 years, you've been doing this.
Well, back when I was the high school coach and then the college coach and starting the camps, people like Paul Westhead would work the camps. So he became friends with them. Paul, as you've heard the story, I guess, the other day, was coaching at LaSalle 1 year, and Jack McKinney got a job to coach at Milwaukee. The next year it was the Lakers.
Yeah.
He had a very, very popular camp in the Poconos. It's called Camp Canadensis. McKinney called me because he knew I was the camp guy and said, listen, I'm going to give you this camp. It's yours. I don't want any parts of it. I won't be around, but you must hire Paul Westhead to run it with you.
Okay.
So that's how we really got to know each other. And as you know, we've been friendly a long time. But so you met people indirectly. And because I was scouting colleges, you were talking to coaches all over the country. So it kind of spread that way. And the name Blue Chip and my own name, which wasn't as important, but were very well known. My kids played ball, and they all loved it. And they all played AAU, same thing. None of them went into business, but every one of them worked with me at all the events.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I think that's kind of the unique thing. It's really like a family affair, having everyone there, and it's makes it unique. And I think, who better to hire in some respects, in your situation with the camp than family to volunteer.
You have to have people that not only are capable,
Mm-hmm.
but they have to be responsible.
Well, the McDonoughs are pretty responsible.
Yeah, it's pretty responsible. We won't tell the world what your job was at the tournament.
Getting yelled at.
So we had lots of coaches, high school coaches work there, family members.
Yeah.
And since that was done for so many years, that's another way. All these coaches, but college coaches, would be coming to the tournament to see the kids. So who they see first? They see me. So that's how we got to really have the connections, the names, and it helped us.
Yeah, and a couple more questions. I mean,
sure.
You brushed elbows with a lot of impressive people in your career. What type of coaches? I mean, obviously all the college coaches, right? Do you have relationships with a lot of them? Pat Summitt, Gino, the big names of women's basketball?
I knew Pat Summitt, did not know her that well. I know Gino very well because he's a Philadelphian.
Mm-hmm.
I like to give him a hard time because when Gino would come to one of my tournaments, they pay a fee to come in.
Yeah.
Gino never wanted to pay. He's Gino. And I would make him pay in front of everybody. And then he'd come walk up to me and goes, "Is this all you want is money?" I said, "Well, I want your money." Anyway, he became very friendly. A couple of times we were on planes. He recruited my players. And he's a fantastic coach. In fact, a true basketball lover would love to go to Connecticut's women's basketball practice. There might be 16 people working on the court with the kids. And
really?
It's nonstop. And he is very tough. Very tough. He's really good coach, but again, high school Americans, he's throwing them out because they didn't run hard enough. But very, very, it was good to see that. Now, pro coaches, I'm just trying to think of the names that you would know because now they're much different. The guys I know are all on the way out.
Well, you can name a couple of them. I mean, we have listeners who are all different ages, I'm sure. So they might.
Jimmy Brown is a color man now. Well, he was very famous in coaching. Dick Vitale. Trying to think all the local Philly guys.
Sure.
Coach of St. John's, Louis Carnesecca. I got to know him. That's the other thing. When I was working at Villanova, we were in the Big East, and I had a certain job, and I got to meet coaches there too. So you became friendly with, as friendly as you could be with John Thompson. He was always a solemn guy. But Billy Rafferty was a good friend of mine and still is, and he's as a good a guy, not on television, as you say. He's just a wonderful guy. That's how he comes across, I think, the way he does.
He does, yeah.
He's very good. Jimmy Lynam, I became very good friends with. Herbie McGee in Philadelphia, who has won like 1,100 games so far, I think.
Yep.
I got to know Williams at North Carolina. I'm trying to think of more modern people. Well, Jay Wright. How can we not talk about Jay?
Yeah.
Who again is another wonderful human being. But yet it afforded us and our family a good time. I never, ever did not want to go to work.
Yeah,
that's something that a lot of people can't say. Work wasn't easy. Nothing's easy when it's WORK. But I didn't mind going there because it was going to be talking about sports, or arranging a tournament, all that stuff. So it's all things. Certainly not, you have to be a rocket scientist. You had to be pretty sharp to keep all the balls bouncing out. It was a lot of details.
I mean, I've been to Spooky Nook, and you definitely do have to be organized to keep that place running. From the hotel attached to it, how many courts? 130 courts, or was it?
30 courts.
30 courts, yeah. 30
We
courts.
played 30 games simultaneously.
Jeez, yeah. With whistles going off everywhere.
Every team would play 7 games in the tournament, so they all played twice a day. The last day they played once. Plus, they were all in brackets of 64, which nobody wants to hear. You got to keep track of that so you won it. And I created this crazy system way a long time ago that we would put teams in a bracket, and you would get 6 games, let's say. Only one team would be 6-0, and only one team would be 0-6. And how I developed that was you play your first game and you win.
Yeah.
You go to the winner's side. If you lost, you go to the loser's side. Now you play your second game, and let's say you're on the loser's side, and then you win. So you've lost and you won. We'll stop it at this. The third game, you would play somebody who lost and then won. So every game you play is against somebody who's had the exact same record as you.
Interesting.
So the games get better and better and better. Bad teams are all over here. Good teams are all over here.
Wow.
They're loving it on the right side. So that was another blue chip.
That also has to cause a lot of chaos, close games, close calls, keeping the refs in check, the parents in check. The parents, yeah.
Not as bad with girls, obviously, because the boys can be really something. But yeah, the parents, they're still living through their kids. A lot of them,
some of them, yeah. Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but the behavior of the parents is a little better because they know that Coach Smith from somewhere is there, and they don't want to be seen to being some wahoo. Then they might not recruit their daughter. So that kind of helped also.
That helps too. And my last question is, with COVID, to keep yourself busy, and you're big sports fans, what have you been watching on TV? That's my last question. What do you spend your time watching these days?
Well, I have too much time, and that's
favorite team, maybe coach to watch, whether it's maybe just.
Well, golf. I have 9 teams in the club, so there's work at making sure that there's the coaches for there, and the tournaments and the schedules.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Obviously, basketball games are usually only on at night, so we have the hours from 8 to 5 every day. I'm reading a lot more. I don't play golf anymore because of my back, but I keep busy. I volunteer to do whatever I can for my wife. I was volunteering driving nuns and priests to doctor's appointments.
Cool.
But now you can't do that because you can't be in the car with me. So we'll think of something.
Yeah.
Someone told me today, a good friend of mine, well, actually, the gal who's coached me forever, you've met her, but you probably forget her. She wants me to write a book. I go, who would care?
That'd be great.
No, I don't know about that. Paul was a, professional coach. There's a difference.
But what this podcast is, sports business, the business side of maybe some, youth basketball or something like that would be interesting, honestly, to how it's evolved over time.
Yeah, I've always thought that in the NCAA, both the men's side and the women's side, there should be, I'm going to use the word czar, but someone who is the liaison for the coaches in the schools with the NCAA.
Sure.
And someone to watch what's going on and what recruiting rules they should have and shouldn't have from somebody who has done that for a living. Mm-hmm. And they haven't done that yet. Someone talked about it once. The USA basketball, was thinking about it. I would do that, but the clock's ticking. So
well, it's another one of your good ideas. So
I have ideas.
We'll see. Yeah. We'll see if it's implemented.
I think the Nike idea with the stores was the one that really hurt me the most. Nike Town.
All right. Well, Uncle Bill, thanks for joining the podcast today. I really enjoyed it.
I am thrilled. It was fabulous. I think you have a great future doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
From now on, I'll be glad to help you off the air, maybe perhaps with some people.
Yeah. I mean, you just rattled off 100 guests. So if I can get one of those on, definitely would help me out.
Maybe Billy Cunningham.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Rolly's dead. There's a lot of people that we know that we can try. So
let's try it. Yeah. Well, Uncle Bill, thanks again.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your night. Take care.
I will.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to check out more content, please remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at the handle @SBR_podcast. We are now active on YouTube at Sports Business Review. Don't forget to subscribe. and give us a follow on Facebook and LinkedIn at the same name, Sports Business Review. If you feel the need to provide any further feedback, or you'd like to be featured on a future episode, please visit www.sportsbusinessreview.com, the official home of the S.B.R. podcast. Once again, my name is Brian McDonough, and have a great week, everyone.